fuck going on, Willis?
GCI, yeah, that shit gon' fall. Rather die than my bitch till it's tone.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Cupcake Media. But before we dive into the mayhem, please remember to click subscribe, give us a thumbs up, give us some likes, give us some comments. We are on YouTube and a host of other podcasting sites such as Spotify, Anchor, Apple, you name it, we should be on it. And yeah, that's it. Let's go into some fun stuff. So we are going to recap the last week, which has been filled with some very unfortunate, exciting news regarding Afghanistan. And it is very unfortunate. I don't think I've ever seen anything this bad on a humanitarian level in a while. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't as bad or worse situations going on in the world. But it's just very unfortunate as to what is going on in Afghanistan. You know, the reality is the Democrats are in a pile of just deep, deep elephant shit. I mean, it's got to at least be as tall as the Burj Khalifa in, like, Abu Dhabi. I mean, it is so deep. And not one of them, not one person has been able to produce a legitimate reason as to why they pulled out so hastily. Haha, that's what she said, right? And how they had such a massive intelligence failure as to how the Taliban was able to take over so quickly and everything so quickly. There hasn't been anything said. I think they're just shocked as to what happened. And they keep diverting everything by telling everyone to get booster shots and being vaccinated. This has nothing to do, getting your potential booster shot, which on a side note, there are a lot of doctors kind of questioning whether we need the booster shots now. We know that the immunity to COVID with Pfizer and Moderna and some of the other vaccines it wears off after like 6 months. But when you're the president of the United States, one of the most prestigious positions of government power in the world, and actually for any position of power, it's one of the most prestigious in the world, you got to carry yourself with some pomp and circumstance. And when you don't want to answer questions, that should speak volumes as to the type of person and the type of cabinet that you have, unfortunately. My problem with refereeing is that if you're going to referee, you always got to do it the same day in and day out. You just can't sometimes decide that you're going to be an asshole referee one day and then a nice referee the next. And what I mean by that is regardless of what your stance was on the previous president of the United States, on President Donald Trump, it got a little tiring that for 4 years, all we heard was just how much people hated him, how the news constantly mocked him, how the news constantly made fun of the person. I think this issue with the Taliban has maybe, hopefully, woken people's eyes up as to how fucking lucky they have been that they can mock the president of the United States and not get in trouble. Because guess what? If you mock even the janitor of the Taliban, you're going to die. So imagine if you mocked and you ridiculed and patronized their leader, what's going to happen? They're going to chop you up in 30 different pieces probably. So I think people should really, appreciate that they had the privilege to do that and make fun of someone. And news organizations should take privilege and note that privilege, that they had the opportunity to constantly make fun of their leader for so many years. Now, the reality is, if President Trump would have ignored these questions, people would go and lambast him and patronize him, talk about how he's irresponsible, and the list goes on. Now, so why aren't we doing the same thing, President Biden? What allows him to get away with that? Is it because he's a little bit older and he's approaching 80 and we feel sorry for our grandfather? I mean, I just don't know. So that's kind of that's kind of our stance on this on Cupcake Media. I mean, the Democrats are just in the pile of deep, deep, deep elephant poop. Poop, we just said. Apologies there. Elephant poop. We can call it Ella poop if we want. Hashtag Ella poop. Listeners, I think that might, that might be a new trend. But the way they did this, which is just so embarrassing, is probably literally one of the worst U.S. foreign policy decisions ever. I mean, we can't say that what happened in Saigon was one of the worst because well, I take it back. We were winning that war in Vietnam when you study it, but then, due to certain decision-making, policies, we had to retreat, and then technically the United States and the South lost that war. But this is up there with that. Probably, in my opinion, ties what Jimmy Carter did to Iran during the Iranian Revolution of 1979 when, and this is what they won't teach you in the cupcake education in the United States, Jimmy Carter in the United States actually encouraged Ayatollah Khomeini to become the leader of Iran. They gave him money, they gave him access, they got people to align with him. So instead of aligning themselves with Dr. Bakhtiar, who was the direct disciple of the true father of democracy in Iran, who was Mossadegh, right? Instead of aligning themselves with someone who was a true Democrat and truly wanted democracy for his people, they went with Ayatollah Khomeini. And what Jimmy Carter did was one of the worst things because it created one of the worst humanitarian crises in the Middle East at the time. And then, of course, you had President Ronald Reagan come in with our former SecDef back then, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, who then went to Saddam Hussein. They gave him a bunch of chemical weapons. And so that shitstorm turned into an 8-year war with the highest usage of chemical weapons ever seen since World War I. So that wasn't great. And, let's see what else Jimmy Carter did. Oh, yeah. Because of his amazing decision-making skills, the United States had one of the worst recessions it ever did. Not as bad as the Great Recession of 2008, but it's up there with that. And we had hyperinflation, which thank God we have not seen, but we're getting close to there now. So Biden is no different than Jimmy Carter. They're both very old white U.S. presidents who did very stupid things and ruined countries, and both led to hyperinflation. And because we're on that path right now, the cost of stuff is so bad that it's just astronomical. So this whole debacle is in one giant can of diarrhea. It's just terrible. The way in which we did things was very bad. And right now, we got to look at who wins and who loses. So the U.S. has definitely lost everything there. China's a winner. China is a big-time winner. We were reading, I believe it was in Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal not too long ago, it stated that, for example, China is signing a rare earth metals deal with the Taliban, which is massive. You need rare earth metals because everything we use has them. You want to make electric cars? Well, you need lithium. You need rare earth metals. My question is, why didn't America have a contract in place with Ghani, the former president of Afghanistan, and the previous, Afghan Republic government that was in power? Did we have these deals? I don't know. This is a big blow to the United States. $1 trillion spent. Did we make $1 trillion from resources there with trade? I am pretty sure that balance sheet is going to be heavily in the red. There ain't no black on that side. There ain't no green. There ain't no positive. It's all in the red. So China definitely wins in this. And the question is, did China outplay the United States again? The question we have to ask ourselves is, did China want the United States to pull out of Afghanistan, or did China anticipate that the United States would pull out and they knew that the Taliban would take over? These are important questions to ask. It's like we got outmaneuvered on the chessboard again because maybe the Chinese had anticipated that we would truly pull out. Now, we know from the previous administration the peace treaty was signed. But did the Chinese anticipate four moves ahead on chess that the United States would not do anything because they're we're being this big threat in Asia Pacific, and the United States we know is going to come to counter us there, so why don't we move a little bit away from them and go somewhere that they don't have a big stronghold, which is technically getting closer to the Middle East, so getting to Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan technically is not part of the Middle East. The Middle East really begins from Iran and goes westward, but if Afghanistan was still part of Iran, then you could technically include it as part of the Middle East. But as of right now, for making sure that all the cupcake kids don't wank off too hard and give us a hard time, we're just going to say it's not part of the Middle East. So did they anticipate this? Did they anticipate that that the United States would pull out, and therefore they were ready to just go in there and make their moves and get ahead on that chessboard even further. We just don't know, but it's something to consider. It's also something to consider that did they know that if the United States fully pulled out, that the Taliban would take over, which would then once again put China in a more strategic position, because that's where they are right now. They are in a good strategic position. Sino, Russian relationships, they're we can't tell if they're good, we can't tell if they're bad. I think deep down Russia is skeptical of China, even though they have certain trade agreements and whatnot, especially militarily. But, China, borders them. China is just like Russia and like the United States, where they're known as, these giant continent countries. So by going to Afghanistan, it kind of puts China in a unique position strategically. I mean, Afghanistan's a very difficult country to walk around. The mountains are just everywhere. It could be dry and cold. It's not easy terrain, but when you have missiles, terrain doesn't really matter at that point. You just launch. So this kind of puts China in a very unique strategic position. I think economically, I think even just geographically, it's a weird spot from a military standpoint, but if you look at what China's overall ambitions are, it falls in line with them. So the United States has heavily lost out on this. Still, on the cupcake news of fake news, no one has answered where this army of 300,000 plus Afghan soldiers went. Now, in our last podcast, we talk about this. We truly say what happened to these people, other than the fact that some of the people that we know out there in those regions have told us that many members of the army actually joined forces with the Taliban, and this could have some serious blowback effect on the United States. One question to ask is, how does Iran feel? Because this is a Shia versus Sunni thing. Iran and the Taliban did not get along before 9/11. It was the Iranians who helped the United States actually conduct proper raids and air campaigns against the Taliban, because the United States was literally bombing anything with a fucking hole in it, that they didn't realize that some of these caves were just occupied by donkeys. So, Iran and the Taliban did not get along. Ideologically, they're very, very different. Iran almost went to war against the Taliban before 9/11 because the Taliban had invited a group of Iranian diplomats. They wanted to, just get their help on some things. I think it was through economically and through trade and whatnot. Anyways, they ended up killing the diplomats, which was a sign of war. Then the United Nations stepped in and did not allow Iran to attack the Taliban. Now, imagine if they did. Imagine if 9/11 and all this other mayhem never happened, and how different our histories would have been right now. But what's happened has happened. We've got to keep moving forward. So the two had bad relations, but it's interesting with the new president in power, President Raisi of Iran. What's interesting is we're seeing like different approaches and different sentiment from different people. So it looks like the government, because they want to avoid a war with the Taliban, are kind of stepping up to help stabilize the region, because Iran is one of Afghanistan's biggest trading partners, even during the Afghan Republic's time when they were there. They were they're vital for Afghan success. And I think because of the fact that the Chinese and Russians are in there, Iran as a major regional power, I think, is feeling like, okay, we don't want to go to war, so we might as well try to see if we can get along with them. Now, what's interesting is the Iranian people aren't happy with this, because they did not forget what happened 20 years ago when their emissaries got killed. Like, literally heads chopped off, everything. You name it, it happened to them, unfortunately. So they're very skeptical because they don't trust the Taliban. They say the Taliban are a government in which, in front of you, they tell you everything. The moment you stop talking, they're going to try to kill you and take advantage of you. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. I think Iran really wants stability, because to the West, they've seen so much instability with what happened in Adal, Iraq, and Syria. So the last thing they need is another border country with a lot of instability. Speaking to the people in Iran, it's so heartbreaking hearing what they're seeing, because what they're seeing is just heartbreaking. They talk about how who all the Afghan Iranians are, because when you drive around or you walk around town, they're the people who are like literally on the side of the street crying to death because it feels as if everything has been taken away from them. And I want that to sink in. Imagine you experience so much pain that when a stranger looks at you and they see you crying, that it looks as if you're crying your soul out of your entire body. They told us that a lot of Afghans during this last decade have experienced a lot of prosperity because they've been able to travel between Mashhad, which is in Iran, a big city, and go into Afghanistan. A lot of them set up businesses. So a lot of them, this was a great time for them. They got to prosper. They got to get educated. Socially, there are a lot of advancements. Economically, there's a lot of improvements. So for a lot of them, this was amazing. And now it's all gone. They don't know what to do. I think when we see those images of people hanging on to I think it was a C-130 airplane, the U.S. military transport plane. I apologize if it was the wrong plane. We just have so fucking many. I can't keep up with it. And you see them clinging onto it, and they're falling to their deaths. I think people in America should have a wake-up call that the next time they say that this place is a shitty place, just realize it was so shitty. Why is it people are risking their actual life to get here? There's 191 countries on this planet, and they are risking to come here. I think, you know what? I think the next time someone talks shit about America and says how this is a shitty place, or we have made no progress, and all the progressive phobia bullshit that's been going on, I think we should take all those people and fly them to Afghanistan, and all those people that want to come here, I will gladly accept them into the United States. I will gladly take any person in Afghanistan who truly wants to come here. I would gladly switch those people with the Nimrods here who all they do is talk about how shitty this place is and how they're just nothing but a bunch of fascist liberals. They're not even real liberals. They're fascist liberals. And they can go there. And let's see how long they last under Taliban rule. Let's just see how long their cupcake mentality keeps them alive. Because I guarantee you, the moment they say something, they're going to realize that, oh no, mommy and daddy aren't going to be here to bail me out. I'm going to fucking die. So I would gladly take any of those citizens of Afghanistan and have them here. Because I know when those people come here, they're going to set up businesses, they're going to get educated, they're going to become doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, business owners, human rights lawyers probably, storytellers, electricians, plumbers, you name it. They're going to do amazing things. They are going to make this country a better country because they're going to provide a better outcome than a bunch of complainers. There's a difference when you criticize your country. For example, when we criticize how our Holy Emperor Newsom of California doesn't build us high-speed rail, it's because when we vote upon something and that vote never happens and then he takes that away from us, how is that any different from a dictator? That is not democracy. That is not even communism. It's just being a complete dictator. So there's a difference when you criticize, because when you criticize, you expect things to be better. You expect things to be better. You criticize because you're trying to give your critical feedback, your input, your observation as to why this thing sucks and how it can get better. But when you sit there and complain and say that this is the worst country on the planet, well, I hope your eyes have been awoken and that you can realize how amazing this country is. Now, a little bit of education street talk. On that subject of how amazing the United States can be, I think it's time that people in the United States start acting like a civilized country. This bullshit of trying to rob each other in our homes, killing each other over fucking shoes, this insanity of road rage and murders and gun violence has to stop. We are a beacon of hope for the world still. We are a beacon of of admiration for the world, and when we act like a bunch of savages, it ruins what the United States is about. We are so much better than that in 2021. We really are. I do not understand this cupcake mentality of the level of violence and ignorance and stupidity that is going on. The amount of road rage. I mean, people should even just be blessed at the fact that they can have road rage. Because I guess what, in other countries, you'll get shot if you have road rage. Like, you, the road rage, like, creator, you and your whole family will get hunted down and killed by a government. It happens in other countries. Because what they believe is, oh, if the mother or father are bad, then clearly their offspring are bad. They will kill them. So people should, revel in the fact and just be joyous at the fact that there are no repercussions like that. I mean, other than the fact that some people are crazy enough where they will shoot back at you in road rage in the United States, but that's my whole point. We shouldn't even have road rage. Why can't we act like mature adults? We're a bunch of little fucking kids in grown bodies making grown-up decisions with the intelligence, with the mannerisms of a 2-year-old who's having a temper tantrum because they're not getting any milk. So right now, we have to act better than everyone. And it's time we start doing that. We have to start acting like proper adults, like a proper man and a proper woman. Because right now, with the way we act, to be honest, with the fascist mindsets, the violence, the levels of insanity, and I don't mean the people who have mental health problems, I just mean the insanity of just the stupidity that we see with the violence and gun violence and people trying to rob each other. We make the Taliban look good. And it makes us look like crap. So I want that to sink in for a little bit. So you know what? Let's all do a better job of being better, nice, sympathetic, caring, loving human beings. Where we don't do stupid things and have road rage and endanger the lives of our own families in our cars and those on the road. Right now in Afghanistan, this situation is heartbreaking. We have not received any clear answers. And I don't think we ever will. But if the President of the United States tells us that the reason we have to pull out is to counter China, he is correct. We do have to counter China. But was this pullout done correctly? Absolutely not. If the President of the United States tells us that we have to pull out of Afghanistan because there's no point in having U.S. service women and men risk their lives when the Afghan people are not willing to do that, he is absolutely correct because no one fought in Afghanistan. 300,000 troops against 80,000 members of the Taliban, a 4-to-1 ratio approximately. They could have easily controlled 80 to 90% of the country. Nothing. So why should we have U.S. service women and men risk their lives? It's not fair to them. So he's correct on that. But once again, this pullout is an embarrassment to the United States. If anything, it sends a message to the world that the United States does not care about its obligations. We heard from people in Asia, specifically East Asia, so you're talking about China, Taiwan, Japan, Korea. The Chinese were conducting war games a few days ago. Apologies, my nose is itching. And for those of you on Spotify, no, I'm not picking my nose, just my nose is a little sunburned, so it was itching. We heard that the Chinese were conducting war games near Taiwan. And they had loudspeakers that the people on the shore of Taiwan could hear, saying that we're coming for you next because the United States will never defend you, like in Afghanistan. And I think that's freaking scary. It's fucking scary. That puts us in a bad spot. It really, really does. Because that's the view that we have given to the whole world right now. I think in South Korea, right now, the question we've got to ask ourselves is, even though the South Korean army is way more advanced than the North Korean army, can the South Korean army defend itself without U.S. help? And that's something we really got to ask ourselves, because look at what we did to Afghanistan. $1 trillion over 20 years. We could have built high-speed rail from west coast to east coast of the United States with that fucking money, dude. Like, seriously, we could have probably connected all continental 48 states with high-speed rail. We could have made the intercontinental high-speed rail line in the United States. How amazing would that be? Just saying. How amazing would have that been? $1 trillion. And we didn't even make $10 out of that deal. Terrible investment. Spent billions training the Afghan army, special commandos, and special forces. Where were they? Where were they? Nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. This is just tough. This is just very, very tough. And I think right now, it really challenges the U.S. position and what is important to them. It doesn't matter about 20 years ago whether or not we should have stayed in Afghanistan, because that what if, like, should we have stayed, should we not have stayed, should we have left when Osama bin Laden got caught and killed in Pakistan? All that, it's happened. We have to look at the now. We must be present in the now. We have abandoned a country in which there were many parts of this country where people still like the U.S. presence, like in Kabul and Kandahar. And that, yes, while we do know that the North and the South, there was a strong allegiance to the Taliban and they had always controlled those territories, the reality is you take the three biggest cities in Afghanistan, and it's like a third of the population. So let's just say 30% of the country still needed our help. That's a lot of people. Afghanistan has a population of about 38 million people. About like 9 million of them were relying on our help. I think 9 million. Let's say if it's even 5 million. Still, it's a lot of people. You know, I think the advancement of women right now it is so heartbreaking to see what may happen for a lot of women out there. A lot of them have felt they've made so much progress in the country and that it's all going to go away now. So this has had some bad repercussions. In the end, if you watch the last episode on Afghanistan, at the end of the day, the United States could have set up a peacekeeping mission with international partners. We still could have had U.S. troops in key areas with international partners. We wouldn't have technically violated the treaty with the Taliban. And we could have made sure that if for the last 10, 20 years that many members of the government, to the military and police chiefs were all corrupt, why do we never replace them? If we knew they were corrupt, what were we doing? I think one thing to ask is also, why is it the same senators who were in power 20 years ago who supported this war are the same idiots now in power making decisions that are endangering the lives of millions of people in this country? We got to get rid of our Congress. They are completely inept at doing anything. Half of them, not actually half, all of them are so fucking old, they don't even know how to use a smartphone or use the Waze app. I think as Americans, like, we have our own problems. So how the hell are we going to go fix and bring democracy to another country when our democratic system isn't even that great right now? When the same people keep getting elected over and over and over and over again, and they have no connection to us as a society. We got to fix our democracy first. We got to go back to the roots. We got to go back to a real democracy. So these are things for us even to consider. Is that how can we be a symbol of democracy when our democracy is not the best? Because you know what the sad thing is with the United States? They used to have a policy about no man left behind or no person left behind. Well, guess what? Everyone's being left behind right now in Afghanistan. And it's not only Americans, and it's not only Afghanis. There's Germans. There's Ukrainians. There's a lot of different international people stuck there wondering if they're going to make it out alive tonight or not. And that, I think, is what is so disappointing. So when the Chinese have the balls to play loudspeakers as they're conducting war games off the coast of Taiwan, saying you're next because the United States won't defend you like Afghanistan, that's a slap in our face. We've got to do better than that. We can't be so careless. And while, yes, it is important to counter Chinese aggression in Asia Pacific, we also got to make sure that we're not falling into the hands of our biggest rival right now, which is China. And we are not doing what they want us to do, which is, for example, in this case, pulling out so foolishly and so quickly out of Afghanistan so that they can come in and reap all the rewards, such as making deals for natural gas and rare earth metals. I hope this is a learning lesson for us as a country and as a world. I really do. We can do so much better than that. Anyways, we hope you enjoyed this little recap and this episode. Have a wonderful day. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode. And as always, please remember to just click subscribe, leave us comments, and tell your friends about us. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, everyone.